December 1982. 2 a.m. GoldenEye Villa, Jamaica. Sting couldn't sleep. His marriage was falling apart. His wife was leaving him. And all he could think about was her. Where she was. Who she was with. What she was doing. He got out of bed, walked to the piano, and started playing. The words came immediately. Every breath you take. Every move you make. I'll be watching you. He wrote the entire song in 20 minutes. Finished it in one sitting. And he knew exactly what it was. A song about obsession. About not being able to let go. About surveillance and control. It was dark. Sinister. Uncomfortable. When Every Breath You Take became a massive hit in 1983, Sting expected people to hear the darkness. But they didn't. They heard romance. The song became a wedding favorite. A slow dance classic. The ultimate love ballad. And for 40 years, Sting has been trying to tell the world, you've completely misunderstood this song. It's not romantic. It's creepy. This is the story of the song the world got wrong, and why Sting doesn't know whether to laugh or cringe every time he hears it at a wedding. Before I share this incredible story with you, if you want to discover the real stories behind music's most iconic songs, the inspiration, the misunderstandings, and the truths artists have been trying to tell us for decades, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because the story I'm going to tell you today is about how one of the most beloved love songs of all time is actually about something much darker. By late 1982, Sting was one of the biggest rock stars in the world. As the lead singer and bassist of The Police, he'd helped create hits like Roxanne, Message in a Bottle, and Don't Stand So Close to Me. The Police were selling out arenas, topping charts, and defining the sound of early 1980s rock. Sting had fame, money, and success, but his personal life was falling apart. Sting, born Gordon Sumner, had married actress Frances Tomalty in 1976. They had 2 children together, but by 1982, the marriage was crumbling. The problem was Sting's lifestyle. Constant touring, months away from home, the pressures of fame, and, as Sting would later admit, his own ego and infidelity. Sting had met someone else, Trudy Styler, an actress who would later become his second wife. The affair became public. Frances found out, and by late 1982, the marriage was effectively over. Sting was devastated, not because he wanted to save the marriage, he'd already checked out emotionally, but because he couldn't control what happened next. Frances was moving on, building a life without him, and Sting, despite being the one who destroyed the marriage, couldn't handle it. He was consumed by jealousy, by the feeling of being replaced, by obsessive thoughts about what Frances was doing, who she was with, whether she was thinking about him. In December 1982, the Police were in Jamaica preparing to record their next album, Synchronicity. They were staying at GoldenEye Villa, a stunning estate that had once been owned by Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond novels. It was supposed to be a peaceful, creative retreat, but Sting was a mess. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on music. All he could think about was Frances. One night, December 1982, around 2 a.m., Sting gave up on sleeping. He got out of bed and wandered through the villa. There was a piano in one of the rooms. Sting sat down and started playing. No plan, no melody in mind, just his hands on the keys and his mind racing with thoughts he couldn't turn off. The chords came first. Simple, repetitive, almost hypnotic. Then the words. Every breath you take. Every move you make. I'll be watching you. The lyrics poured out of him. Not planned, not revised. Just raw emotion translated into words. Every line was about the obsessive feeling of monitoring someone you can't let go of. The need to know where they are, what they're doing, who they're with. The feeling of watching from a distance, unable to move on, unable to stop caring. Sting wrote the entire song in about 20 minutes. Verse, chorus, bridge, everything. When he finished, he sat there for a moment, processing what he'd just created. The song was dark, uncomfortable. It wasn't poetic or romantic. It was the perspective of someone who'd lost control of their emotions and couldn't let go. A stalker. Someone consumed by jealousy and surveillance. But Sting also knew it was good. Musically, the song was simple but powerful. The melody was haunting. The lyrics, while dark, had a poetic quality. And the repetition, I'll be watching you, was effective. Unsettling, but effective. Sting went to bed that night thinking he'd written something interesting. He had no idea he'd written one of the biggest hits of the decade. Over the next few months, the Police recorded Synchronicity at Air Studios in Montserrat. Every Breath You Take was included on the album. The band worked on the arrangement. Andy Summers, the guitarist, added an iconic guitar riff, arpeggiated chords that became one of the most recognizable guitar lines in rock history. Stuart Copeland, the drummer, kept the rhythm minimal and restrained, letting the tension build. Sting sang the vocals with a cold, detached quality. No passion, no warmth, just surveillance. The producer, Hugh Padgham, wanted to add more production, strings, layers, effects. But Sting insisted on keeping it sparse. The song is already uncomfortable, Sting said. Don't make it comfortable with production. The final version was stark, simple, haunting, exactly what Sting wanted. When the band listened to the finished track, opinions were mixed. Andy Summers loved it, thought it was the best song on the album. Stuart Copeland was less enthusiastic. He thought it was too slow, too minimal. But Sting was confident. He knew the song worked. He just wasn't sure how people would react to the lyrics. Every Breath You Take was released as a single in May 1983. Radio stations played it immediately, and the response was overwhelming. People loved it. The song climbed the charts quickly. Within weeks, it was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 8 weeks. It also hit #1 in the UK and topped charts in over a dozen countries. But here's what surprised Sting. People thought it was romantic. DJs introduced it as a beautiful love song. Fans called radio stations to request it for dedications to their partners. Couples slow danced to it at proms and weddings. The song became synonymous with love, devotion, and commitment. Sting was baffled. In interviews, he tried to clarify. It's not a love song, he said in a 1983 interview with Rolling Stone. It's about jealousy and surveillance. The protagonist is a stalker. Listen to the lyrics. I'll be watching you. That's not romantic. That's creepy. But the clarification didn't matter. People heard what they wanted to hear. The melody was beautiful. Sting's voice was soothing. And if you didn't listen too closely to the lyrics, it sounded like a song about devotion. The line, "Every breath you take, every move you make," could be interpreted as caring deeply about someone, paying attention to them, being present in their life. People chose to hear love instead of obsession. By the end of 1983, Every Breath You Take was the best-selling single of the year. It won the Grammy for Song of the Year in 1984. It became one of the most played songs on radio, and it cemented the Police as one of the biggest bands in the world. But Sting couldn't shake the feeling that everyone had completely misunderstood what he'd written. The misunderstanding got worse over time. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Every Breath You Take became a staple at weddings. Couples chose it as their first dance song. Brides walked down the aisle to it. DJs played it during the slow dance portion of receptions. It became one of the most popular wedding songs of all time, right up there with At Last by Etta James and Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. Sting found this deeply ironic. In a 1993 interview, he said, "I'm flattered that people want to use my song at their weddings. But I do wonder if they've actually listened to the lyrics. Because if they had, I'm not sure they'd want to associate their marriage with surveillance and obsession." Journalists would occasionally press him on this. "Does it bother you that people misunderstand the song?" they'd ask. Sting's answer evolved over the years. In the 1980s, he was frustrated. He wanted people to understand the darkness. By the 1990s, he'd become more philosophical. "Art is subjective," he said in a 1998 interview. "Once I release a song, it's not mine anymore. It belongs to the listener. If they want to hear romance, they'll hear romance. I can't control that." But privately, Sting admitted it was strange. His most successful song, the one that made him the most money, the one that defined his career, was completely misunderstood by millions of people. And he didn't know whether to correct them or just let them enjoy their version of the song. In the 2000s and 2010s, Sting became more open about the song's origins. In his 2003 memoir, Broken Music, and in various interviews, he talked candidly about his divorce, his jealousy, and the obsessive feelings that inspired the lyrics. "I was not in a good place when I wrote that song," he said in a 2016 interview. "I was angry, hurt, and couldn't let go." The song is a document of that emotional state. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's honest. He also acknowledged the irony of the song's legacy. "I've made millions of dollars from Every Breath You Take," he said in a 2019 interview. "It's been in movies, commercials, TV shows. It's probably my most lucrative song. And it's a song about stalking. So every time I hear it at a wedding, I have this internal conflict. Part of me wants to tell the couple, you do know this song is creepy, right? But another part of me thinks, if it makes them happy, who am I to ruin it?" Sting has performed Every Breath You Take thousands of times over the past 40 years. At police reunion concerts, at solo shows, at benefits and award ceremonies. And every time, the audience sings along with joy and nostalgia, completely oblivious to the darkness in the lyrics. Sting has learned to accept it. He plays the song, he smiles, and he lets people believe what they want to believe. But the misunderstanding isn't just about romance. Every Breath You Take has also been used in contexts Sting never imagined. The song has been featured in crime dramas, thriller movies, and TV shows about stalking and obsession, contexts where the dark lyrics actually fit. Sting appreciates these uses more because they acknowledge what the song is really about. In 1997, Sean Puff Daddy Combs sampled Every Breath You Take for his song, I'll Be Missing You, a tribute to his friend the Notorious B.I.G., who'd been murdered. Puff Daddy changed the lyrics to be about grief and loss. The song became a massive hit, #1 in multiple countries, and Sting made millions from the sample. Interestingly, Puff Daddy's version was more aligned with how the public interpreted the original, as a song about caring deeply for someone. Except in this case, it was about remembering someone who died. The irony wasn't lost on Sting. Over the years, Every Breath You Take has been covered by countless artists. Some keep it faithful to the original, others reinterpret it, but almost all of them treat it as a love song. Sting has heard versions at weddings, funerals, anniversary parties, and Valentine's Day events. And each time, he's reminded that art means different things to different people. Today, Every Breath You Take is one of the most played songs in music history. According to BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated, it's been played over 15 million times on radio and television. It's generated over $2 million in royalties for Sting, more than any other song he's written. It's been covered by over 100 artists, and it remains a wedding favorite 40 years after its release. Sting is now 73 years old. He's been married to Trudy Styler, the woman he left Francis for, since 1992. They've been together for over 40 years, and Sting has made peace with Every Breath You Take. In recent interviews, he's more amused than frustrated by the misunderstanding. I wrote that song at the worst moment of my life, he said in 2022. I was jealous, angry, and obsessive. And somehow, that became the song people associate with love and commitment. Life is strange that way. He's also reflected on what the song says about human nature. People want to believe in romance, Sting said in a 2023 podcast interview. They want to believe that love is pure and devoted and all-consuming. So when they hear, I'll be watching you, they don't hear surveillance. They hear attention, care, presence, and maybe that says more about what we want from love than what the song actually says. The legacy of Every Breath You Take is complicated. It's a masterpiece of songwriting, simple, haunting, effective. It's also one of the most misunderstood songs in music history. Sting wrote a song about obsession, jealousy, and control. The world heard a love song. And for 40 years, those two interpretations have existed side by side. What makes the song brilliant is that it works both ways. The melody is beautiful enough to support a romantic interpretation. The lyrics are ambiguous enough that if you want to hear devotion instead of stalking, you can. Sting didn't intend that ambiguity, but it's there, and it's what makes the song timeless. In the end, Every Breath You Take is a reminder that art doesn't belong to the artist. Once it's released into the world, it takes on a life of its own. People interpret it through their own experiences, their own emotions, their own needs. Sting can tell people the song is about obsession. But if someone hears love, that's what it becomes for them. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the greatest art is the kind that can hold multiple meanings. The kind that reveals something different depending on who's listening. Sting wrote Every Breath You Take in 20 minutes at 2 a.m. during the worst period of his life. He thought he was writing a confession, a document of his jealousy and inability to let go. But the world heard something else. They heard a love song, a promise, a vow. And for 40 years, Sting has watched his darkest moment become the soundtrack to other people's happiest memories. That's the power of music. It doesn't always mean what the artist intended, but it means something. And sometimes, what it means to the listener is more important than what it meant to the person who wrote it. Sting has spent 4 decades trying to tell people they've misunderstood Every Breath You Take. But maybe they haven't. Maybe they've just found their own meaning in it. And maybe that's the whole point.